In this video, I will be explaining my process in using a mixture of 2D and 3D to create hybrid character animation. The Merry rig I used for creating my 3D animations was not created by me, but is free to use and encouraged for educational purposes. This image shows how my freehand drawing of Merry compares to the traced image of the Merry rig. I didn't create a new 2D character as I didn't want to take away from the main focus of the project. For my hand-drawn animations, this is what I'm basing my drawings on. The first thing I did before creating any animation was to get reference of exactly what I wanted to animate. I came across this video and thought the action of lifting a cup would be a reasonable thing to animate with hybrid animation techniques, where the cup and the character are in different dimensions. The process I used is inspired by Tina O'Haley's method of 3D characters leading 2D characters, except for I also used the reverse of the method, with the 2D character leading a 3D prop. In this experiment, I animated both the 2D and 3D version of Merry against the Shutterstock video footage, rather than referencing of each other. I did this because I wanted to see how my results differed when following the same source. Then, I animated the cups by themselves to integrate them into the hands of my characters. You can see how their motion differs in the hands of both Merrys. After rendering the 3D cup, I took it into Nuke along with my 2D Merry and composited it into an animation sequence that can pass off as a 2D animation. As for using Nuke to do the same progress to the 2D cup, the results were interesting. Then, I used Adobe Animate to layer the cup on top, and the white border was far too distracting. So, I went back to 3D. I created an image plane with my assigned alpha and diffuse maps to create a 2D stand-in of my cup. I parented it to the wrist control just like I did to my 3D mug, and the results were much more seamless. In this experiment, I wanted to look into line boiling, a phenomenon in hand-drawn animation where lines wobble and jitter to stop animation looking frozen at held keyframes. My main focus was to see if a line boiling effect could be used and created solely in 3D, as I knew about the Maya toon shader and outline effects. The short answer is yes. By setting keys on various parameters on the outline inputs, I could create a very basic line boil over the course of 6 frames. This holds some potential, however. I won't get to see how it works with the Merry rig, as this is what happens when I assign the outline to it. So instead, I looked into applying 2D line boiling, which I created by tracing over the rendered images in Photoshop twice. This is what the 3D render of Merry looked like without the line boiling. This is the two-tone shader applied to the 3D model and combined with 2D outlines. And this is Merry with a white Lambert shader and 2D line boiling effects. This experiment was done to explore the process of using 2D hand-drawn facial expressions to be used on a 3D character's face. First, I created Boxy, a very simple character for the sole purpose of this exercise, created with face extrusions from a cube. I then extracted the plane I wanted to use for the face in my UV set, so that I'd know where to draw my faces in Photoshop. After taking a UV snapshot, I took it into Photoshop and created a lot of different faces, naming each of them with ascending numbers so that Maya would recognize each face as a frame. The problem with doing that is, the number used in the facial animation sequence is linked to the frames in Maya. This means that if you want to set a specific frame or face in your animated texture to a frame and set another later on, Maya will cycle through all of the frames in your animated texture sequence that it takes to get to your next set key. A simple way to fix that problem is to create the animated texture in a way you wish it to be played in the animation to avoid complication like these. The facial animation in this sequence is now completely intentional rather than unintentional. In order to create my puppet, the setup was relatively easy. First, I had to create an image consisting of all of the parts to make up my puppet. I did so using a pencil and A3 paper to see how well the method would work with traditional media. Then, I created a black and white image used as my alpha map, where the white areas are the parts where I want full opacity in my texture, and the black areas are where I want it completely transparent. I hooked up my image files to a shader and applied it to a group of plane shapes blocking out the overall form of my 2D puppet. After tweaking the UVs so that each plane displays its respective part as intended, I created hierarchies so that it would work like any other rig, where the hip moves the calf moves the foot, and so on. Initially, there were a lot of issues in manipulating my puppet. Rotations didn't work exactly as intended, with skewing, squashing, and broken constraints. However, after freezing my transformations and deleting history, the puppet worked as intended. I intended to also look into hybrid animation in the place of particle simulation, hand-drawn special effects, and integrating two characters in the same way I did the first experiment with still props, if not more. But for now, I'm happy with my developments and plan on creating much more hybrid animation in future.